All right, we got some Nebraska Cornhuskers news for you guys. Look, we're obviously in the middle of the season, 7 games through Nebraska's schedule, building a little bit momentum, of course, coming off a couple of wins, third in the Big Ten East right now. Looks like Big Ten West, excuse me. And it looks like the Nebraska Cornhuskers aren't just resting and focusing on playing football. This is what I love about Matt Rhule, right? He's always recruiting, always trying to get better, and he always thinks of new and exciting ways to go after recruits. And we've got a report from On3 Sports highlighting that exactly the lengths Matt Rhule and his team is going to. Let's go ahead and throw up this tweet actually from On3 Recruits. Again, that's a subdivision of On3 Sports. Here we go. Nebraska parked a semi outside the high school of four-star offensive tackle target Grant Brix today. Brix is down to Oklahoma, Kansas State, and the Huskers in his recruitment. And there you can see the picture of the semi truck right there. You see Nebraska football blazing down the side. I can honestly say I've never seen this before in the world of recruiting. And, I was recruited myself. I was a D1AA college athlete. I played with a lot of guys in high school, that went to big time SEC schools. I was involved with recruiting and watching football, of course, pretty much my entire life. You see these kind of things, see different tactics coaches and programs are going to go to get recruits. This is a new one, and I think it may be my favorite one. I think this is just another example. It's kind of a funny story, but it is insightful to how Matt Rhule thinks. He thinks differently. That's why he turned around Baylor, and I think that's why he'll turn around Nebraska as well. Curious what your thoughts are on this, Mize, but before we go into the details of this story, Nebraska fans obviously trying to build some momentum off of last week's victory. You got Purdue coming up this weekend on FS1, big-time matchup. Let us know your prediction. Purdue versus Nebraska. Interesting game. Nebraska's building some momentum. Give us your prediction of the final score in the comment section below. But, Mize, what do you think of Matt Rhule pulling on a move like this to try and get a recruit of this nature? I mean, is it just like a funny shtick, or is it kind of a really clever way of getting a recruit's attention?
You gotta love the creativity, and I think any recruit is gonna see that. You've never seen it, the recruit's probably never seen it, and it's like, coming out here, obviously, I would say this. They probably did their research. It's probably something that would get this guy's attention because, like, for me in particular, if you put a tractor trailer truck outside of a school to recruit me, I'd be like, oh, wow, cool. Like, but maybe this is something that this guy likes, and, he's a Midwestern guy from Iowa, the real true salt of the earth type of people, probably a lot of truck drivers around. They pick a good one, American-made company, Kenworth, this guy, he's probably an American-made guy. He probably relates. It probably strikes a chord with him. If it's not a Peterbilt guy, I think that we're in the ballpark here. That could be dicey if they pick the wrong brand. So I like what they're doing, though. It's very, very interesting because I'm just really waiting to see when Brix announces and where he decides to go, because this would be the most legendary story ever if Nebraska ends up pulling this one off. I think it would be a recruiting story for the ages, especially for this guy, just talking about how he got recruited to Nebraska, talking about how they won this guy. Be really good, but this guy, he's really good prospect too, so I think they pull it all the stops. 6'6", 290, interior offensive lineman. He's really good looking player, so I think that this really could be something special next. I want to see what happens when he, commits. If he commits to Nebraska, something we could follow up back on, because this really could be something special that Matt Rhule has pulled off.
The first thing about persuasion, the first lesson of persuasion that was taught to me a long time ago is attention. And when it comes to recruiting, it's all about persuasion. It's getting a high school kid and persuading him to come to your program over all other programs that are showing him all kinds of goodies and spinning him all kinds of tales and trying to persuade him to come to their program. So it's all a masterclass in persuasion. Whoever can persuade the best will win the recruiting game. That's just the reality of it. Nick Saban is famous for his ability to communicate, especially with parents, especially early in his tenure in Alabama. He was able to persuade a lot of kids to leave LSU or that were committed to LSU and come to Alabama. We're seeing a very similar dynamic here with Matt Rhule. He understands that the first step in persuading someone is getting their attention. Right now, I guarantee you, over Oklahoma, going through all the top guys on this guy's recruiting list here. Kansas State, Oklahoma, heck, even Alabama has offered him. Auburn has as well. All of these guys that are recruiting right now, I guarantee you the first guy on this kid's mind is Nebraska and Matt Rhule because of that truck, right? He has their undivided attention right now. And it sounds small. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but trust me, it really matters, especially as a high school kid. I remember when I was being recruited, the coach that called me the most There were two coaches that called me the most over all my recruiting guys. I wasn't a big time recruiter. I had like 6, 7 schools recruiting me. Guess who my final 2 schools were? The 2 coaches that called me the most. They're constantly getting my attention. Both of them visited my school. Again, they weren't necessarily the best academic place. They weren't even the best situations for me to even get more playing time or anything like that, or even the more winning or programs. But they had my attention. They were able to persuade me to go to their program. It's the exact same policy even now. And I think this is what Matt Rhule gets that a lot of other guys in college football really don't. They think they just have to go out there and just say, well, we'll just tell him he can come here and he can play right away, or he can, it's a great academic school or whatever it may be. No, to get these kids, just get their attention. It worked for Oregon, right? With their flashy uniforms. It's the same principle. Get these kids' attention. You'll get them to commit. It's a pretty simple process. Matt Rhule gets it. And I think this is just another example of how Nebraska is going to get better and better and better in the recruiting game. And that's going to translate to the field as well.
Yeah, Nick, and we've seen the results already of what Matt Rhule's brought in. You go back to 2022, number 41 composite ranking recruiting class for Nebraska. You go to this year, the 2023 class, they're 31. You look towards the future, 2024, already they're top 25 recruiting class there. They've been moving up the rankings because of the things Matt Rhule has been doing. I think this right here is exactly why Nebraska is busting in higher and higher in those big-time recruits purview. Just seeing Matt Rhule, he goes the extra mile, he does the extra thing, and it's showing in the recruiting classes already. I'm excited to see how everything, lands at the end of the day.
And he thinks differently. I want to focus on that because it really matters. Because right now, all we hear is that, well, whoever gives the most NIL money, that's not all it's going to take for maybe the massive 5 stars, the number top 1, 2, 3 recruits in the country. But it's doing things different. It's thinking differently. How do we get a kid's attention? Let's put a big semi truck in front of his high school. Unheard of stuff, but I guarantee you it's going to work. Thinking differently tends to work out for any coach that does that at the highest level. Matt Rhule has proved it before. I think he's going to prove it for Nebraska once again.